I know our ministry's name is very long, and sometimes I don't even remember which ministry I'm at because we keep on changing our ministries. But nevertheless, I think that it's important to look at what are sort of the broad new approaches to specialized services means to us within our government of Alberta. And I think that, when we look at, the groups of specialized services, we first have to look at, how do we find out what is required and based on some survey that we have done. So in order to have an informed understanding of the changing needs and realities of newcomers, two surveys were conducted. One is the Alberta Settlement Outcomes Survey, and then the other one is the National Settlement Outcomes Survey. And some of you may have known about those surveys already. And here are some of the key measures between those two surveys. We know how important it is to understand and to know about the experiences with settlement services in Alberta, about its service accessibility, and whether they are attaching to Alberta and Canada or not, because I've heard a lot of things about it's good to attract them, but how do you retain them? And obviously, we need to look at, how do we ensure that they are integrated socially as well as economically into our system. And the well-being and the life satisfaction is another point that we look at very closely, because at the end of the day, we are, again, talking about the retention issue here. And without language, I'm not sure how one can say that they're being integrated or being included in the communities. So here are some of the successes from the new from the two survey results. Overall, I think that the survey results indicate that immigrants to Alberta are faring well and feel attached to both Canada as well as to Alberta. And they have favorable perceptions of the services available to them. And they also have favorable economic and social outcomes that improve over time. However, behind all successes, we also have challenges as well. One of the key observations that emerged was that improving information about what services are available and how they can be accessed is at least as important as improving the services themselves. Based on the National Settlement Outcomes Survey results, there are three specific areas we need to be focusing on. One is social connection. The other is foreign credential recognition, as well as employment. The other one is official languages, and especially those who are not in the labor force. And we wanted to be focusing on those who are not in the labor force because those are probably are the ones who are probably more isolated, and we wanted to make sure that they do have the language in place so that they don't feel so isolated. I don't know why this slide is in orange, but representing our government's color here, and the NTP. But with respect to our government perspective in terms of looking at the changing immigration system, I think that it's important when we look at the immigration system that we all know that there's a changing landscape. We all know that there's going to be a growth in number, and there's going to be different types of immigrants coming in. The number of immigrants destined to Alberta has increased by 54% since 2005. That's pretty significant when we look at, we only have 18,000 of immigrants 10 years ago, and now we're at 42,000. And obviously, there has also been major shift in national as well as provincial immigration and settlement policies and programs. A little more than a year ago, there's more focus on the economic class. Express entry was introduced. As of July 1st, many of you know that EE has come into play, and that, if you wanted to immigrate as a skilled immigrant, you need to go through that particular system. And the split between the economic and the family class was 60-40. But now with the new government in place, the focus is now more on family class and refugees. And some of you may have remember what's been promised on the platform of the new government, and we all know that for 2016, the annual immigration levels plan pointed that they wanted to bring a proposal to double the number of entry of applicants for parents and grandparents of immigrants to 10,000 a year, and give additional points in the express entry system to provide more opportunities for applicants who have Canadian siblings. And there are many, many more promises as well. But of course, the most important one, and everybody's been talking about it, is about the Syrian refugees coming into Canada, and what that approach is going to look like. And as we speak, we know that all of the ministers of provinces and territories are meeting with the federal minister McCallum, talking about what is the best approach to welcome the Syrian refugees coming in. And our goal also within the Alberta government is to provide ongoing support and to meet the changing needs of immigrants and their families and contribute to their success. And with that in mind, we have looked very closely at our current settlement programs and services. And besides talking to our immigrant serving agencies on a regular basis, we're looking at what other jurisdictions are doing in Canada. So it's great to be here in the same room with all of you to hear all of the wonderful and innovative approaches that you have taken in terms of bringing services to immigrants, and also at looking at those best practices and also evaluating our own program to ensure that we continue to do the right thing. So what would those new approaches look like? Based on what we have examined so far, we want to ensure that our settlement programs are flexible and responsive in addressing the changing needs of newcomers and the families, and the services should be targeted to respond to identified gaps and priorities. And we want to ensure that there's the ability to access services based on client needs and not on immigration status. Our immigrant serving agencies and language providers have been very flexible, responsive, and targeted to address the needs of the specialized groups of immigrants, such as refugees, seniors, youth, and I'm going to add immigrant women in there as well. And a comprehensive, innovative approach to settlement requires a coordinated approach and effort of multiple partners being in place, including all orders of government, immigrant serving agencies, employers, and of course, immigrants themselves. So I just wanted to provide some highlights on some different programs and services, and they are sort of the broad perspective from what our government is doing, as well as what some of the immigrant serving agencies are doing as well. So in terms of multicultural training, within the government of Alberta, we have developed a multicultural training for staff who needs to deal with multicultural families, especially those areas in the children and family services, and it really challenged their values and in terms of working with different cultures. I think it's just starting right now, and we're closely monitoring as to how things go with respect to the multicultural training. And I think that Todd, who's sitting at the back, we first talked to Todd about coming to one of our committees to talk about intercultural communication at work and how that can be implemented into some of the training modules for some of the staff who are dealing with multicultural families. Break the wall, and you're kind of wondering what the heck that is. That is not a new program or service. It is It is about learning English with CBC. It was implemented back in 2010 that will allow immigrants to access to language supports for independent learners who may not have access to ESL in any other way. And so successful integration, we all know that relies on the part of the ability to engage in social conversation with others at work, at school, and as well as in the community. And not all newcomers may have access to language training. So towards that end, this particular initiative's intended outcomes are that independent ESL learners in Alberta have increased access to quality learning resources outside of regular classroom delivery, as well as increased understanding of and ability to talk about local news stories in English. And we are doing a survey on the immigrants and just making sure that they are learning the language, and that and it's one way for us to be understanding whether we are achieving our outcomes or not. And we're also doing some of the in response to the refugee coming in. So we have put together a refugee resettlement initiative together, which is a grant that is looking based on a number of community forums that we have put together with the help of the RAP providers to have a better understanding of what's going on out there within the communities. So based on those forums, we have gathered a number of information in terms of gaps and challenges, and because of that, we have put this grant together. It's $1 million grant. I'm sure that we're gathering all the pieces of information, and we're in the midst of collecting all of the calls for proposals. The deadline for this particular grant is end of, I don't even remember what week we're in now. I think it's December 7th is the deadline, and that we're welcoming all sorts of call for proposals from organizations such as immigrant serving agencies, post-secondary institutions, municipalities, non-faith groups, faith-based organizations, other non-profit organizations, sponsorship agreement holders, because we wanted to ensure that there's some coordination of sponsorship groups, and that there is an increase of public awareness, increase of resettlement supports, and how do we implement those community actions plans that we have been collecting from the RAP providers. And we wanted to be able to reduce the barriers to settlement services and support the language training. So enough about our, what the government is doing, but more about what those seniors, what the government, what the immigrant serving agencies are doing with respect to seniors and parents and youth, as well as different vulnerable groups. So in terms of the seniors, we have had a great deal of success working with Bhutanese seniors as well in one of the agencies. And what they have done is they have put together, an English class through the library, and so from the seniors with a small group of 15 to 20 seniors, they have grown to 60 to 70 seniors, and now they're out there growing vegetables. I think they grew about several pounds of vegetables that equate to $2,000, and they were donated to the Lethbridge. I gave out the name of the agency, but it's a food bank that is in that particular community. And also they are planting flowers for the hospital, so that whenever people are looking at going by the hospital, they can see that the immigrant seniors are really busy planting the flowers, making the communities welcoming. As well as looking at the youth, I know that one of the agencies are looking at connecting with the employers, so that they learn more from the employers as to what to expect when they are getting into the workplace, as well as they are putting a amazing raise in the community as well, so that they are trying to get them to find different treasures in that amazing race, and getting to the final point of a golf course, so that they can golf with employers as well, and other And other types of group that we're wanting to highlight is especially for the immigrant women. I think that when we look at immigrant women, we have to look at sort of the literacy part of things as well. So one of the agencies has identified a need in their ESL literacy and programming. So despite of all interventions, they find that some of the learners are struggling to progress into literacy and language learning. So their project objectives were to identify or develop and implement innovative approaches and mechanisms to assist learners to develop the language skills. So what they intended to do is to develop an inventory of teaching and learning strategies to use with adult English learners of low literacy backgrounds, and compile those techniques that distinguish between the learning processes of typically progressing English learners and those of struggling English learners, so that both of them can be looking at what those useful practices are to support struggling English learners, and then so that they continue to share experiences. And so that they can adapt the teaching and learning strategies based on project findings and shared experiences. And I guess my time is up. Thank you.